Alright, today we're going to be going over how to learn how to play Heat's Pedal to the Metal. The Grand Prix is underway. Everyone races around the track for the given number of laps to determine the best driver. Your skill as a driver comes down to how well you manage your cards in your hand and the Heat engine. You also need to make smart decisions. When you do, give your engine a chance to cool off. And when you do put the pedal to the metal, we'll be playing the blue car. Okay. At the beginning of the game, our start positions are randomized. We got the short straw, we're in the back. All right. This is our hand. We will always have 7 cards in our hand at the beginning of a round. This is your dashboard. On it, we'll see 3 piles of cards, a draw pile, a heat pile, and a discard pile. The draw pile is where our hand of 7 cards is drawn from. We play heat cards at various points in our game, moving them from our heat pile to our discard pile. When our draw pile is empty, the discard pile, along with any added heat cards, is shuffled, becoming the new pile. So this is how you're going to gunk up your deck by throwing heat cards in. The 9 circles across the top of the dashboard represents the 9 steps that make up each round. Sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Some of these steps have an exclamation point next to them, indicating that the steps are mandatory. Others are situational. They may or may not apply to our turn. All right, so mandatory, 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 not mandatory. Okay, so it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 mandatory steps with 5 non-mandatory steps. Step 1 is shift gears. It's mandatory. Your gear is indicated by the gear shift on the right side of your dashboard. It determines how many cards we play during the round. Everyone starts their game in first gear. Generally, the more cards we play, the faster we'll go. So we'll definitely want to get out of first gear. Shifting 1 gear is free, but as the icon on your dashboard shows, shifting 2 gears at once will strain the engine, generating 1 heat. Again, this means that we move 1 heat card from the heat pile to the discard pile. Staying in gear 1 or 2 also provides cooldown, which is how we get rid of heat. Cooldown can only be used on heat cards when they're in your hand, though. Okay, so if we're down here, we actually get to discard out of heat. All right. On BGA, step 1, shift gears is tied together with play cards immediately, number 2. All we have to do is select some cards to play. We'll understand which gear we're shifting into by the number of cards that we play. So we actually don't have to physically move this. As we play more cards, it'll shift up. There are 3 kinds of cards. Basic cards move the number that they're shown. Heat cards just clog up your hand, and stress cards move a random number of spaces. So here is a stress card. It moves a random amount. Select the 2 indicated cards. So we're going to select here and here. Oh, okay. So, all right. Oh, wait. All right, once all the players have took their turn, we'll move into reveal and move. But each space of the track has slots for 2 cards. How can we tell who's ahead? We'll look closely at the track. There's a thin white line along the edge of the track. This is called the race line. However, whichever car is closer to that line is ahead. In this case, green is closer, so green will move first. Also remember how we moved. We had to stop after step 2 to wait for everyone's done. Step 3 to 8 works differently. When a player's turn to move their car, they'll move quickly through all of those steps. Alright, so they move 10 spaces, automatically occupying the slot closest to the race line. Regarding legend, bot movement, you don't really need to know what's going on under the hood. If you're really curious and want to predict their sections, movement, you can check out the mechanics of legend movement on page 5 of the advanced rules. Now the next will move, and we'll be going last. Uh-oh, well, it looks like I blocked up some spot. The second spot, unlike many other racing games, positions like this do not block other cars from moving through them. However, if someone tries to end their movement on the exact same space, they will stop one space earlier instead. Okay, so that's cool. We get to move through the people rather than getting stuck behind them. Okay. All right, these cards are selected and shown a 5 as stress card. Okay. We drew a 3 for the stress card. Together with the 5, that brings a total movement of 8 for this turn. We must move exactly as many spaces as the car is indicated. Click on the 8, and we move forward 8. Then step 3 will immediately move to step 4 because each player performs steps 3 through 8 when they move their car without waiting for other players. Adrenaline. This only applies to the last car to move each round, or in a 5 to 6 player game, the last 2 cars to move. Adrenaline grants us 1 extra speed and 1 extra cooldown this round, but we don't have to use them if we don't want to. This is when we trigger extra speed from adrenaline, cooldown, or boost. Alright, let's start with cooldown. Good. If we scroll down, you'll see that the heat card in our hand was placed on top of our heat deck. Okay. That's the middle pile of the dashboard. Now let's use our extra movement we got. Alright. And boosting costs 1 heat. If we use it, we reveal cards from the top of our piles 1 through 4. Okay. Personally, I usually prefer to play things cool. Let's pass on. Step 6, this only applies if we ended our movement next to or behind another car. It allows us to move exactly 2 steps ahead. If that space is full, we'll need to settle for the space behind it, just like normal movement. In this case, we're directly behind red, so we can do it. So let's move 2 steps. This only applies if we pass through a corner, like this one. The number on a corner is basically a speed limit. If we exceed the speed limit, we must pay the difference in heat. For example, if we pass 7 on the corner with a speed of 9, we have to pay 2 heat. If you don't have enough heat to pay, oof, you don't want to know. Step 8, discard cards. In this step, we can select any number of cards from our hand and discard them. However, you cannot discard a heat or stress cards. Those can only be dealt with in the way we've seen with the heat with cooldown stress play cards. Alright, I think our cards are fine. Let's keep them. We'll do no additional discard. Step 9, replenish the hand. Each player draws until they have 7 cards in hand. Alright, so we got no heat or stress. Looks like we've got a bunch of 2s. That was 1 complete round. Let's go through one more together so that we know we've got it. I'll go ahead and play these 3 cards for us. Alright. Is about to travel through the corner. Remember, if they exceed the speed limit, they must pay the difference in heat. They place through at 10 speed, which means they have to pay 3 heat. They use the boost at the worst possible time, increasing their speed to 12. Since the speed limit was 7, they had to pay 5 heat, plus 1 for triggering the boost. If they don't have enough heat cards to pay that, they spun out. When you spin out, you pay as much heat as you can, and you go back to the space before the corner that was made you spin out. You pay 1 extra stress card to your hand if you're in first or second gear, 2 cards if you were third or fourth gear. You immediately shift to first gear. Nico's engine is flooded with heat now, and he can't control his speed because of stress. So we don't want to bypass those corners unless we have the heat to pay. Alright, so we're moving 8. Last 2 cards, Step Adrenaline. Step 5, unfortunately we don't have any heat on our hands, so cooldown doesn't apply. We could use the extra speed, but if we do, we'll have to pay an additional heat because of the corner limits. And if we boost, we'll end up just like Nico. So we'll pass. Step 6, Slipstream. We are next to the yellow, so we can move 2 spaces forward for free. The movement does not count as speed. Okay. However, this doesn't mean slipstreaming is always safe. Let's say that we have a speed of 12 and we ended up right next to where Nico is now. If we then slipstream after that, it would push us past the corner. So our speed of 12 would then be compared to the speed limit of 7, and we have to pay 5 heat. In such a situation, the button on the top would have a heat icon next to it. So let's look out for that. Alright, check corner, discard, select the 0 and 1 cards, and discard. Alright, the game will continue as you've seen until each player completes a given number of laps. You can see your current lap and how many are required in your player information panel. In this case, we need to finish 2 laps. At the end of a round, if a car has passed the finish line for the final time, their car is removed and placed in the first available slot in the Hall of Fame, which is the top left corner of the board. If multiple cars finish in the same round, the rankings are determined by whoever is furthest on the track. The last thing I have to mention is the customize in the lobby. Alright, that's not how many legends to play with, up to a maximum of 6 cards, how pro you want the legends to be, and so on. Cards we saw earlier, as well as C cards, are actually called upgrade cards. They're easily identified by the tire marks in the top left and top right corner. Okay. Each player 3 random upgrade cards. Yeah, so these are different. So there's the module that has weather, road conditions tile. Alright, well, so that is our introduction tutorial. I think it was really good.